Ready, kids? Luna?
We trust in our family's love because it's pure.
It always makes us feel safe and secure.
We trust in our family's love the most because
It's the first and best kind of love that we know.
Basta for the family, only absolute quality. Absolute distilled drinking water, purified and distilled carefully. Kaya trusted for the family. For the family, only absolute quality.
I was caught in the middle of a transaction in the Philippines when the lockdown happened in Manila.
Sa umpisa, talagang kami ay natakot sa COVID-19.
It isolated me from my family.
Naapektuhan sobra ako sa pandemic talaga. Lahat naman buong mundo naapektuhan.
Someone's always there to help.
Banking with PNB ay tunay na masasandalan kahit sa pandemic.
Mabilis yung pagka-process ng remittance.
Napakabilis ng servisyo.
Laking tulong sa akin ng PNB. Laking tulong nila.
Every time you need help, PNB ang sandalan.
Ang sandalan mo.
Ang sandalan mo.
Ang sandalan mo!
Ang sandalan mo.
Uy, bago! Nagsisimula to sa pag-harvest ng ingredients na ihahalo sa neutral spirits at barrel-aged hanggang ito'y maging ginto.
Barrel-aged ginto.
Para mas swabe ang hagod nito. Ginto, ibang ginto.
Sa bagong mundo, handa tayo. Mula sa pagkabagsak, umahon at buwagi ng pagsubok. Di na tayo papatinag sa panahon. Sarili ang aasahan para muling bumangon. Kasama ang Cobra Energy Drink. May vitamin B complex, turin, ginseng at inositol. Bumagsak tayo noon, pero aangat tayo ngayon. Cobra, angat ang lakas mo.
Sumandal ka sa akin, uunahin yung kailangan, huwag kang mag-alinlangan. Sumandal ka sa akin, may lalapitan, ikaw naman ang una. Kaya sumandal ka sa akin, uunahin yung kailangan, huwag kang mag-alinlangan. Sumandal ka sa akin, may lalapitan, ikaw naman ang una. Kaya sige, sandal, sandal sa PNB, Philippine National Bank.
It's harder magpa-impress sa friends than to mix your favorite cocktail. Introducing Barman. Just add water and stir. Barman, the quick fix cocktail mix.
As you start your journey to be better, you need the right hydration and the right minerals found in Summit Natural Drinking Water. Because once you take that first step towards better, bigger, and grander journeys, the first thing you should have in your hands is a water that can take you to higher summits. Summit Natural Drinking Water. Thirst for more.
Isang pagbibigay pugay sa inyo, mga kapwa kong Pilipino. Kayo na kinakaya ang lahat, kahit mahirap. Kayo na di nawalan ng pag-asa at handang tumulong pa sa iba. Kayo na walang takot harapin ang nagbabagong mundo. Kayo ang tibay ng loob ng isang buong bansa. Mula sa Tanduay Round, higit 165 years nang sumasaludo sa mga bayaning Pilipino. Tibay ng loob, tibay Tanduay.
Fill up with Vitamilk, the goodness of all natural soy with 20 plus vitamins and nutrients.
Hold my Vitamilk.
Protein rich and yummy. Feels good sa body para all out sa life. Vitamilk feels good.
Sa panahon ngayon, dumadami na ang reasons to be stressed. Humihirap ang trabaho at lumalaki ang challenges. Kaya importante ang chill. Na kayang sabayan ang stress mo. Embassy Whiskey. Its smooth, oaky flavor helps you unwind after a long day. Kaya relax, slow down, and chill muna tayo. Embassy Whiskey.
Feel good while you do good with the new Sunkist Freshie. Enjoy the refreshing taste of yogurt and apple, packed with vitamins and minerals to give you that fresh, good start. Sunkist Freshie, the good soda.
Habang tumutunog ang gitara sa akin, makinig ka sana. Dumoble pa ang problema na sobra sa isang dosena. Kahit na stress pa at kasawa, all night lang. Kahit na abot langit ang labada, daming sakit sa ulo, pero light lang ang nagpapagaan ng lahat ng to. Ang tropa ko.
Gaan lang may kasama. Tanduay Light. Drink responsibly.
If you make the right choices, kaya mo magpasaya. Kaya mo magbukas ng puso. Ready? Have the guts to choose para matawid mo ang pagsubok. If you choose to do good, kaya mong magbalik ng pagmamahal. Every choice we make, kahit gaano kaliit, may kabutihang makakamit. So, just take your shot. Select.
Good morning to the stockholders, officers, and directors of the company. I am Michael G. Tan, President and a Director of LT Group, Inc. I have been requested by the Chairman, Mr. Lucio Tan, to chair the meeting this morning. It is now 10 o'clock in the morning, and I hereby call the annual stockholders meeting of LT Group, Inc. to order. This meeting is being convened via remote communication through the Zoom webinar application for the safety of the company's stockholders, directors, and other stakeholders against the COVID-19 virus. It is also being recorded in compliance with the requirements of the SEC. Before we begin the meeting proper, let me acknowledge the presence of the following directors of the corporation. We have with us today Dr. Lucio C. Tan, Ms. Carmen K. Tan, Ms. Carlo T. Say, Mr. Michael G. Tan, Mr. Lucio C. Tan III, Ms. Vivian K. Tan, Ms. Juanita T. Tan Lee, Mr. Jonip G. Kua, Ms. Mary G. Nang, Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez, and Ms. Florencia G. Tariala. May we now ask our Corporate Secretary, Attorney Maria Cecilia L. Pesaico, to please show proof that the stockholders were duly notified of this meeting.
Mr. President, as required by Rule 20 of the Securities Regulation Code and the Code of Corporate Governance for publicly listed companies, and in compliance with the notice of the SEC dated February 16, 2022, the notice for today's meeting was published in a business section of two newspapers of general circulation, namely Philippine Daily Inquirer and Philippine Star, in print and online format for 2 consecutive days. The last day of publication, April 6, 2022, is at least 28 days prior to the date of this meeting. Affidavits of publication were executed by the respective authorized representatives of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Inc. and Philippine Star Daily, Inc., the publishing companies utilized by management for the purpose. The affidavits are hereby submitted for the record. Moreover, the notice of this meeting was posted on the company's website at www.ltg.com.ph and on the company's PSE Edge profile. I therefore certify that our stockholders were duly notified.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. The next item on the agenda is a certification of the existence of a quorum. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum for today's meeting?
Yes, Mr. President. As stated in the guidelines for the conduct of today's virtual meeting, the last day for registration was on April 26, 2022. Based on our tally of those who successfully registered online and the validated proxies and powers of attorneys on hand, present in person and represented by proxy are 8,964,524,631 shares, or at least 82.841% of the total 10,821,388,889 total outstanding shares. I therefore certify as to the existence of a quorum for the valid transaction of business at today's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we proceed any further, Madam Secretary, can we briefly discuss the rules of the conduct of and the voting procedure for today's meeting?
Yes, Mr. President. The voting rights of each stockholder and the requirements and procedure for participation and voting through remote communication were set out in the company's definitive statement. In summary, the voting procedure and conduct of the meeting are as follows. First, stockholders who have successfully completed the registration and verification procedure on or before April 26, 2022 may participate in today's virtual meeting and shall be considered present for quorum purposes. Second, stockholders had until April 26, 2022 to send questions on the agenda matters via email at ltg_asm@pnb.com.ph. For the orderly conduct of today's business, these questions will be addressed later in the meeting. Questions received after the deadline have been referred to the company's investor relations officers and will be responded to via email. The matters submitted for voting at today's meeting are as follows. A. Approval of the minutes of the 2021 Annual Stockholders Meeting. B. Approval of the management report and the audited financial statements. C. Ratification of all acts, transactions, and resolutions by the Board of Directors and Management in 2021. D. Approval of the renomination of Ms. Florencia G. Tariela and Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez as independent directors. E. Election of directors. And F. Appointment of external auditor. Next, voting in absentia is recognized for this virtual meeting. Stockholders cast their votes by email at ltg_asm@pnb.com.ph no later than April 27, 2022 by sending a completed ballot or proxy. Validation of proxies and tabulation of votes were completed on April 28, 2022. Lastly, we wish to remind the stockholders that this virtual meeting is being recorded in video and audio format in compliance with the requirements of the Securities and Exchange Commission. That is all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. Let us now proceed with the meeting proper. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of the stockholders. Our last annual stockholders meeting was held on May 5, 2021, and the matters approved in that meeting were provided in the information statement. Madam Corporate Secretary, were the stockholders appraised of this item in the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. A copy of the minutes of the 2021 Annual Stockholders Meeting, prepared in accordance with the revised Corporation Code, was posted on the company's website as early as May 12, 2021. The matters approved in the last stockholders meeting were summarized under item 15 of the information statement, which was uploaded to the company's website and PSE Edge profile. For that reason, Mr. President, it is proposed that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the 2021 Annual Stockholders Meeting and approve the minutes as appearing in the company's records.
The proposal is noted. Before we tally the votes on this item, may we know from the Corporate Secretary whether we received any inquiries on this matter?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted via email regarding this matter.
Madam Corporate Secretary, may we know the tally of votes on this matter?
Mr. President, the tally of votes and validated proxies is on screen. Based on the total votes received, majority of the outstanding shares of the company present in this meeting, equivalent to 8,956,847,964 shares, approved the minutes of the 2021 Annual Stockholders Meeting held on May 5, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. Based on the report of the Corporate Secretary, the minutes of the 2021 Annual Stockholders Meeting held on May 5, 2021 is hereby approved. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of the votes on this matter. Before we move on to the next agenda, Let us hear a message from the chairman.
Good morning, fellow shareholders. Thank you for joining today's annual stockholders meeting. The past 2 years have been difficult for companies around the world, including the Philippines. But despite the hard time due to the pandemic, LT Group Incorporated still managed to perform beyond expectation. We continue to face many challenges. The economy has yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. Illicit trade of tobacco products remain a major threat, and rising inflation due to high fuel costs and disruption in the global supply chain, and adding to our cost of production. In the face of these challenges, we must continue to innovate, cut costs, and invest in the new technology and human capital. More than any other time in our corporate history, we need everybody to help to regain lost ground. With your continued patience and support, I am confident we can do much better in the years to come. As always, I am grateful to our shareholders, management, and staff for the good work and contribution in 2021. Moving forward, let's work harder to improve our bottom lines, enhance shareholders' value, and help create a better future for our country and community. Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is a management report for the fiscal year 2021. Allow me to render my report. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our third online stockholders meeting today. The year 2021 was difficult as the COVID-19 pandemic entered its second year. Although the country's GDP grew by 5.7%, a reversal from the 9.5% contraction in 2020, and due to a low base, Filipinos still had to contend with some forms of lockdowns, and business suffered as most people's movement remained restricted. When the vaccines procured by the private sector, your company included, started arriving in mid-July, this brought hope that our economy could open up faster, as this would speed up vaccination of the working population. The private sector's purchases were meant to augment the supply of vaccines donated through the World Health Organization's COVAX facility and those ordered by the Philippine government, as the priority were medical frontliners and senior citizens. Since our IPO in 2013, the largest at that time, LTG has been through ups and downs over the past 9 years. To date, the biggest challenge was the illicit trade in tobacco from 2014 up to 2016, and the COVID-19 pandemic follows closely. It was through hard work, cooperation, and a strong financial position built through the years that your company was successful in averting difficulties in 2021. We did not emerge unscathed, but overall, we managed to end 2021 with a net income attributable to equity holders of 20.2 billion pesos, only 3.7% lower than 2020. PMFTC accounted for 17.4 billion pesos, or 86% of LTG's total attributable net income. Tanduay contributed 1.2 billion pesos, or 6% of total. Eton added 548 million, or 3%. Asia Brewery accounted for 475 million, or 2%. PNB contributed 308 million, or 2%. And Victoria's Milling added 258 million pesos, or 1% of total income. Dividends declared in 2021 were at an all-time high. Through a series of special cash dividends, LTG paid out 1 peso and 8 cents per share, or 11.7 billion pesos, equivalent to a 56% payout rate. With the recovery of the tobacco business over the past years, which is the primary source of LTG's cash flow, we have been able to declare more and more dividends. From a total of 1.6 billion pesos in 2013, this has steadily increased to 11.7 billion pesos in 2021, or 1 peso and 8 cents per share. Since 2013, we have paid out dividends of 3 pesos and 38 cents per share, or a total of 36.6 billion pesos. Here is a short video on the operating highlights of 2021. Typhoon Odette in late December 2021 devastated parts of the Visayas and Mindanao and left many areas without power and water for weeks. The full impact of the destruction on the economy will be felt in 2022. The war in Ukraine started in February 24 and has caused oil prices, already on an upward swing given higher global demand, to surge even more. This has brought about higher manufacturing, distribution, and transportation costs, with inflation expected to breach the government's original target of 2 to 4% for 2022. The May 9 elections and the expected smooth transition of power by June 30 should be a cause for further optimism moving forward. Overall, 2022 should be a better year than 2021 as the economy opens up as more and more people gets vaccinated. Go Negosyo estimated that as early as April 2022, 72.6% of the entire Philippines had been vaccinated. For the Lucio-Tan group of companies, 98.6% of the over 31,000 employees have been vaccinated, while 94% of our 15,000 service providers have also received their jabs. This is via our own vaccination program or through different LGUs. The opening up of the economy means that purchasing power of consumers will improve and bodes well for our different businesses. This should mean increased demand for our products of PMFTC, Tanduay, and Asia Brewery. Eton should have higher occupancy rates, but it will take time for the fit-outs of new offices and retail tenants. An improved economy will also mean less non-performing loans and higher margins for PNB. I would like to end this report by thanking our stakeholders for the continued support and trust in your company. To our board of directors, management team, and all our employees, thank you for your dedication and hard work through these challenging times. We have been through another tough year, and together we will see our company out of this better and stronger. Madam Corporate Secretary, are there any other matters which the stockholders must be informed of?
Mr. President, in compliance with the revised corporation code, the stockholders must be informed of the total compensation received by each of the directors during the past year. Based on the report from the Chief Financial Officer, the following are the individual compensation of the members of our Board of Directors.
Thank you. Did we receive inquiries regarding our management report?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Since there are no questions, let us proceed to the next item on the agenda, the approval of the management report as reflected in the annual report, together with the annual financial statements of the company for the year 2021. You have just heard the President's report on the results of the company's operation, which is also reflected in the audited financial statements and the annual report, copies of which were made available to the stockholders via the company's website and PSE Edge profile. Madam Corporate Secretary, please present the proposed resolution for this item and report on the tally of votes for this item in the agenda.
Mr. President, on the screen is the proposed resolution for this matter. The tally of votes and validation proxies is also on screen. Based on the total votes received, majority of the outstanding shares of the company present in this meeting, equivalent to 8,954,783,864 shares, voted in favor of this matter.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. With stockholders owning a majority of the outstanding shares present voting in favor of the matter, the management report is reflected in the annual report together with the annual financial statement for the period ending December 31, 2021, is hereby noted and approved. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of votes on this matter. The next item on the agenda is a ratification of all acts, proceedings, and resolutions of the Board of Directors and management of the company from the date of the last annual stockholders meeting up to the present, as reflected in the minutes of the meetings of the Board of Directors. The information statement contained a summary of acts, resolutions, and investments of the Board and management for the year 2021. These acts, proceedings, and resolutions were discussed and approved in the meetings of the Board and its committees and are covered by minutes which are on file with the Office of the Corporate Secretary. These minutes are available for inspection upon the request of any stockholder. We will now address questions received through electronic mail regarding this item in the agenda, if any. Madam Corporate Secretary, can you please read the questions?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Since there are no questions, Madam Corporate Secretary, kindly present the proposed resolution for this item.
Mr. President, the proposed resolution for this matter is shown on the screen. We have also tallied and validated the following votes cast via proxy and in absentia. Based on the total votes received, majority of the outstanding shares of the company present in this meeting, equivalent to 8,954,783,864 shares, voted in favor of approving all the legal acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors and the management of the company from the time of the last annual stockholders meeting on May 5, 2021, up to the present date.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. With stockholders owning a majority of the outstanding shares present voting in favor of the matter, all acts, proceedings, and resolutions of the Board of Directors and management from the date of the last annual stockholders meeting up to the present, as reflected in the minutes of the meetings of the Board of Directors, are hereby approved, confirmed, and ratified. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of votes on this matter. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the renomination of Ms. Florencia G. Tariela and Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez as independent directors. May we request the Corporate Secretary to explain this item in the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez and Ms. Florencia G. Tariela have both served the maximum cumulative term of 9 years as independent directors under the Code of Corporate Governance for publicly listed companies. The Code of Corporate Governance, however, allows for extension of the term on meritorious grounds. In the meeting held on February 8, 2022, the Nomination Committee recognized the valuable contributions of Ms. Tariela and Mr. Sanchez and endorsed their renomination as independent directors for another year. Ms. Tariela was a former Undersecretary of Finance and the first Filipino Vice President of an international bank. Her professional experience is beneficial to the company in navigating and understanding the rules of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and policies of other governmental financial agencies. Moreover, she is a strong advocate of good corporate governance and brings this advocacy to the board for the latter's strict adherence. Mr. Sanchez's professional background and work experience are invaluable to the company as it always seeks his opinion or advice on various tax-related matters. He advises the board on pending proposals on tax legislation and the impact of the latest revenue circulars and SEC memorandum circulars. His timely advice helps the company and its subsidiaries make necessary adjustments in their operations. The renomination of Ms. Tariela and Mr. Sanchez was duly approved by the Board of Directors and is now proposed to be approved by the stockholders.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. Did we receive inquiries regarding this item?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Since there are no questions, Madam Corporate Secretary, kindly present the proposed resolution for this item.
Mr. President, the proposed resolution for this matter is shown on the screen. We have also tallied and validated the following votes cast via proxy and in absentia. Based on the total votes received, majority of the outstanding shares of the company present in this meeting equivalent to 8,946,206,922 shares voted in favor of approving the renomination of Ms. Florencia G. Tariela and Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez as independent directors for the year 2022 to 2023.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. With stockholders owning a majority of the outstanding shares present voting in favor of the matter, the renomination of Ms. Florencia G. Tariela and Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez as independent directors for the year 2022 to 2023 is hereby approved. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of votes on this matter. The next item on the agenda is the election of directors for the year 2022 to 2023. May we request the Corporate Secretary to report on the nominees for directors for the year 2022 to 2023.
Mr. President, I am pleased to report that in a meeting held on February 8, 2022, the Nomination Committee approved the nomination of the following 11 individuals as directors of the company for the year 2022 to 2023. Dr. Lucio C. Tan, Ms. Carmen K. Tan, Ms. Carlo T. Sai, Mr. Michael G. Tan, Mr. Lucio C. Tan III, Ms. Vivian K. Tan, Ms. Juanita Tanley, Mr. Johnny G. Kua, Ms. Mary Ginang, Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez, and Ms. Florencia G. Terriela. I would like to further report that nominated as independent directors are Ms. Mary Ginang, Ms. Florencia G. Terriela, Mr. Johnny G. Kua, and Mr. Wilfredo E. Sanchez. The profiles and business experiences of the nominees are set out in Item 5 of the information statement.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. Were there any questions about the nominees to the Board of Directors?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Can we now hear a report from the Corporate Secretary regarding the votes on this item in the agenda?
Mr. President, we have tallied the ballots and the proxies received. Considering that there are only 11 nominees for the 11 seats in the board, all the nominees are effectively elected as directors of the corporation for the year 2022 to 2023. Mr. President, the resolution regarding this matter is shown on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. I hereby declare that the 11 nominees are duly elected as directors of the company for the years 2022 to 2023. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of the votes on this matter. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of the company's external auditor. May we request the Chairman of the Audit Committee, Mr. Johnny G. Kua, to report on the nominated external auditor for the year 2022 to 2023 as approved by our Audit Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to the stockholders, officers, and directors of the company. The Manual of Corporate Governance requires the Audit Committee to evaluate and recommend the external auditor to be appointed for the company. The committee's evaluation is thereafter endorsed to the Board of Directors and presented to the stockholders for approval. The Audit Committee is pleased to report that after careful deliberation and evaluation of the performance of the accounting firm of CSIP Gores Velayo & Company for the past fiscal year, and considering the quality of its audit work, taking into account the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the competitiveness of its fees, and its reputation, we have endorsed to the board its reappointment as external auditor of the company for the year 2022 to 2023. The appointment of CSIP Gores Velayo & Company was approved by the Board of Directors last February 8, 2022, and is now being presented for ratification of the stockholders.
Thank you, Mr. Kua. Can we inquire from the Corporate Secretary whether there are any queries regarding the nominated external auditor?
Mr. President, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
May we request the Corporate Secretary to present the proposed resolution for this item and report on the tally of votes?
Mr. President, the proposed resolution on the appointment of SGV and Company as external auditor of the company for the ensuing year is shown on the screen. The tally of votes and validated proxies for this matter is as follows. Based on the total votes received, majority of the outstanding shares of the company present in this meeting, equivalent to 8,956,700,464 shares, voted in favor of the appointment of CSIP Gores Velayo & Company, SGV & Company, as external auditor of the company for the year 2022 to 2023.
Thank you, Madam Corporate Secretary. With stockholders owning a majority of the outstanding shares voting in favor of the matter, the appointment of CSIP Gores Velayo & Company as external auditor for the company for the year 2022 to 2023 is hereby approved. Madam Corporate Secretary, let the minutes reflect the tally of votes on this matter. I believe we have discussed all items on our agenda. May we inquire from the Corporate Secretary if there are any other inquiries received from the stockholders?
Mr. President, there were no additional questions submitted online.
Since there are no other matters to discuss at today's meeting, this meeting is hereby adjourned. On behalf of LT Group Inc., thank you for your continued support.